Story 1. Summer break had finally arrived, and a group of college friends, Emily, Ben, Jessica, and Alex, decided to embark on a cross-country road trip to explore the infamous Ghostland amusement park. The park was known for its sinister history, with tales of accidents, disappearances, and an overall aura of unease. Despite the warnings, the group saw it as an exciting adventure, a chance to experience a horror-themed amusement park like no other. As they approached Ghostland, the atmosphere grew increasingly ominous. Dark clouds loomed overhead, and a heavy fog enveloped the park grounds, obscuring their vision. The entrance was adorned with rusty gates and faded banners that welcomed them to a realm of thrills and chills. The group's excitement mingled with a creeping dread, but they pressed on, determined to experience the park's infamous attractions. The rides were unlike anything they had encountered before: haunted houses with real actors, eerie carousels with spectral horses, and roller coasters that wound through pitch-black tunnels. The group navigated through the park, alternating between screams of terror and laughter, though the unease never truly left them. As night fell, the park took on a surreal, haunting beauty. Dim lights cast eerie glows on the old buildings, and the laughter of other parkgoers echoed in the distance. Emily suggested they explore the abandoned attraction known as the Maze of Shadows, rumored to be the most terrifying experience in the park. The maze was a labyrinthine structure of walls covered in black curtains, creating a disorienting atmosphere. The group entered, armed with flashlights, their excitement mingling with trepidation. But as they ventured deeper, the maze seemed to shift and twist, the walls closing in on them. Time lost its meaning as they wandered through the endless corridors, their flashlights revealing fleeting glimpses of eerie mannequins and unsettling artwork. The air grew heavy, and the once distant laughter of other visitors was replaced by a deafening silence. As panic set in, they realized they were trapped in the maze, unable to find their way back to the entrance. Fear and frustration brewed, and tensions ran high. The walls seemed to pulsate, the maze itself a living entity that reveled in their terror. In the midst of their desperation, they stumbled upon a room unlike the others. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, and an altar stood at the center, covered in dusty candles. As they cautiously approached, the air grew colder, and a guttural chant filled the room, seemingly coming from all directions. Alex reached out to touch one of the candles, and the room plunged into darkness. When the lights flickered back on, Alex was gone, leaving behind only a chilling scream that seemed to echo throughout the maze. Panic surged through the group as they realized they were no longer alone. They fled through the maze, the walls shifting and distorting as if mocking their attempts to escape. Jessica's flashlight flickered, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to dance to the rhythm of their pounding hearts. Emily and Ben clung to each other, their breaths ragged, their minds haunted by the specter of Alex's disappearance. Just as they were about to succumb to the hopelessness of their situation, they stumbled upon a hidden passage that led them to a hidden chamber. The walls were adorned with photographs of previous parkgoers, their faces etched in terror. In the center of the room stood Alex, his eyes vacant, his body seemingly suspended in midair. A voice echoed through the chamber, revealing the sinister truth: the maze was a conduit for a malevolent entity that fed on fear. The park's history of accidents and disappearances were not mere coincidences but a part of a dark ritual that sustained the entity's power. The group realized that they were meant to be its next victims, but a surge of determination propelled them to fight back. With a collective effort, they recited an incantation that shattered the entity's hold on the maze. The chamber trembled, and the photographs on the walls disintegrated into ash. As the walls of the maze collapsed around them, they found themselves back at the entrance of the park, the fog lifting, and the sun beginning to rise. Ghostland Amusement Park appeared normal, as if the horrors they had experienced had been a nightmare. As they left the park, the group shared a solemn bond, forever changed by their nightmarish encounter. They had stared into the abyss of the paranormal, facing a malevolent force that sought to consume their fear and despair. And as they drove away from Ghostland, the memories of that horrific summer night were etched into their minds, a reminder that darkness can lurk even in the most seemingly innocent of places. Story 2. The sun blazed mercilessly as a group of friends, Alex, Olivia, Chris, and Maya, set out on a road trip to the remote village of Blackwood, known for its haunting legends and eerie reputation. They craved a thrilling summer vacation that would take them out of their comfort zones, but little did they know that their adventure would lead them into the heart of darkness. As they drove deeper into the countryside, the landscape morphed into a labyrinth of twisted trees and overgrown vegetation. Blackwood greeted them with an eerie stillness, the air heavy with an unsettling energy. The locals eyed them with a mix of suspicion and apprehension, but the friends brushed off the unease, eager to uncover the village's secrets. They rented a quaint cabin at the edge of a dense forest, its ancient trees casting long shadows even in the bright daylight. The first few days were relatively uneventful, hikes through the woods, picnics by the river, and laughter around the campfire. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a creeping unease settled over them. Their nights were marred by restless sleep and chilling dreams. Shadows danced on the cabin walls, whispering voices echoed through the rooms, and figures lurked at the edges of their vision. Chris tried to shrug it off as their imaginations running wild, but the tension was palpable. One evening, they stumbled upon an old journal hidden beneath the floorboards of the cabin. Its pages were filled with ominous warnings and cryptic symbols, describing a malevolent force that dwelled in the woods and demanded sacrifices. Maya laughed nervously, dismissing it as a local legend meant to scare off outsiders, but a seed of doubt had been planted. As the days wore on, Olivia became increasingly withdrawn, her once vibrant energy replaced by a haunting emptiness. She spoke of hearing voices in her head, whispers that promised unimaginable power in exchange for a simple act of obedience. Alex and the others grew worried, but their pleas fell on deaf ears as Olivia seemed consumed by an unseen force. One moonless night, the friends gathered around the campfire, the flames casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance to their own rhythm. Olivia's eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity as she spoke in a voice that was not her own, proclaiming her loyalty to the entity that had taken hold of her. Fear gripped the group, and they backed away, their minds racing. Desperation set in as they realized that Olivia was no longer herself, but a vessel for the malevolent force described in the journal. The entity's demands grew more sinister, and its influence spread like a plague. Chris and Maya attempted to leave Blackwood in search of help, but the forest seemed to stretch endlessly, the trees shifting and rearranging to thwart their escape. As Alex and Maya returned to the cabin, they found Olivia standing by the window, her eyes vacant and soulless. She beckoned them closer, her voice a chilling whisper. The walls of the cabin seemed to close in, the air thick with a suffocating darkness. Maya and Alex exchanged a glance, their fear mirrored in each other's eyes. With no other option, they confronted Olivia, pleading for her to fight against the malevolent force's control. Her laughter was cold and hollow as she spoke of the power it offered, the promises of eternal dominion over life and death. The cabin trembled as the entity's presence grew stronger, and Alex and Maya realized they were running out of time. In a last-ditch effort, they retrieved the journal and began reciting an incantation they hoped would banish the entity back to the depths from which it came. The cabin shook violently, windows shattered, and the air crackled with an otherworldly energy. Olivia's form contorted, her screams piercing the night. A blinding light engulfed the cabin as the incantation reached its climax. The force that had held Olivia captive was torn away, leaving her collapsed on the floor, her eyes wide with terror and confusion. The forest seemed to sigh, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as dawn broke. As the sun rose, the village of Blackwood appeared almost ordinary, as if the horrors of the previous nights had been a nightmare. Alex, Olivia, Chris, and Maya emerged from the ordeal forever changed, the memory of their horrific summer vacation etched into their minds. They had faced a malevolent force that thrived on fear and despair, a darkness that tested the limits of their friendship and their own inner strength. And as they left the village behind, they couldn't shake off the feeling that the shadows of Blackwood still lingered, waiting for the next unsuspecting souls to wander into their depths. Story 3. Amelia had always been captivated by the allure of the abandoned Willowbrook Manor. The decaying mansion stood at the edge of town, its once grand facade now marred by years of neglect. As summer vacation approached, Amelia's curiosity got the best of her, and she convinced her friends, Ethan, Lily, and Michael, to join her on an adventure that would forever change their lives. Their plan was simple: spend a night inside Willowbrook Manor and unravel its mysteries. Armed with flashlights and a mix of excitement and trepidation, the group set out on a warm summer evening. As they crossed the mansion's threshold, an unsettling chill ran down their spines. The air was thick with an otherworldly presence, and the creaking floorboards seemed to groan in protest. Amelia led the way, her flashlight revealing the dilapidated interiors, moth-eaten tapestries, shattered mirrors, and cobweb-covered furniture. They explored room after room, each one darker and more foreboding than the last. The atmosphere grew heavier, and the sense of being watched became palpable. But curiosity pushed them forward. As the clock struck midnight, a distant whisper echoed through the mansion. The friends exchanged nervous glances, their hearts pounding in unison. Lily's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Michael laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood, but his voice trembled. The group decided to regroup in the grand foyer. Amelia's flashlight revealed a magnificent staircase that spiraled upward into darkness. A sense of unease settled over them, and they hesitated. Ethan suggested they split up to cover more ground, a decision they would soon come to regret. Amelia and Lily headed upstairs, while Ethan and Michael explored the ground floor. Amelia's footsteps echoed through the corridor as they entered a room covered in dust and decay. The room was dominated by a massive portrait of a stern-looking man. As Amelia's flashlight landed on the painting, she gasped. The man in the portrait seemed to be staring directly at her, his eyes filled with a malevolent hunger. Lily tried to brush it off, attributing it to a trick of the light. But as they continued exploring, the whispering grew louder. It was as if the very walls of Willowbrook Manor were alive with secrets, eager to share their horrors. Meanwhile, Ethan and Michael stumbled upon a library, its shelves lined with ancient tomes. The air was thick with the musty scent of old books, and they began flipping through the pages, their curiosity piqued. But the words on the pages were incomprehensible, written in a language that seemed to twist and writhe. As Ethan turned to leave, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the candles that had been flickering on the desks. Panic surged within them, and they hurried to find each other. But their path was obstructed by shifting walls and changing hallways, a labyrinth designed to confound and terrify. Amelia and Lily found themselves in a room that bore a striking resemblance to the one in the portrait. The walls were adorned with paintings of the same men, each one more menacing than the last. The whispering grew louder, and their flashlights flickered uncontrollably. In the dim light, Lily saw a figure move in the corner of her eye, its features twisted and contorted. Screams echoed through the mansion as the group finally managed to reunite. They rushed toward the entrance, their adrenaline-fueled flight driving them forward. But as they reached the front door, it slammed shut with a deafening thud, trapping them inside. Panic set in as the mansion seemed to come alive, walls shifting, and rooms morphing into grotesque shapes. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, and ghostly apparitions danced in their peripheral vision. The malevolent presence that had been lurking in the shadows now enveloped them, its hunger for their fear and despair insatiable. In a desperate bid to escape, they retraced their steps, frantically searching for an exit. As they reached the grand foyer, a blinding light erupted from the staircase, revealing the horrifying truth. The man from the portrait stood before them, his eyes glowing with malevolence. With a blood-curdling scream, the group rushed toward the staircase, their every instinct screaming at them to flee. The mansion seemed to convulse, its very structure contorting and crumbling. Just as they reached the top of the stairs, a deafening roar filled the air, and the world around them shattered into darkness. When dawn broke, the townspeople found Willowbrook Manor collapsed in on itself, a testament to the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. Amelia, Ethan, Lily, and Michael were never seen again, their fates forever intertwined with the malevolent force that had consumed them. The abandoned mansion stood as a reminder of the horrific summer vacation that ended in tragedy, a cautionary tale that whispered through the town, a warning to those who dared to venture too close to the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of reality. Story 4. The sun hung heavy in the sky, casting an unrelenting heat over the sleepy town of Oak Ridge. Summer vacation had finally arrived, and families were packing up their cars and heading to the nearby Crystal Lake campground for a week of fun and relaxation. Among them was the Thompson family. Mark, his wife Emily, and their 2 children, Sarah and Jake. The campsite was nestled deep within a dense forest, surrounded by towering pine trees and the tranquil waters of Crystal Lake. The Thompsons had rented a cozy cabin by the lake, hoping for a rejuvenating escape from the city's hustle and bustle. As they settled into their cabin, a sense of excitement filled the air. Little did they know, their summer vacation would soon spiral into a nightmare. The first few days were idyllic. The family spent their time swimming in the lake, hiking through the woods, and roasting marshmallows by the campfire. But as the week progressed, strange occurrences began to unfold. Mysterious footsteps were heard outside their cabin at night, and belongings started to disappear without explanation. Emily dismissed these incidents as mere coincidences, but Mark couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. One evening, as the family gathered around the campfire, a chilling wind swept through the forest, extinguishing the flames. Sarah and Jake exchanged nervous glances, their smiles fading. Mark looked around, his heart racing. He sensed a presence lurking in the shadows, a malevolent force that seemed to watch their every move. That night, Emily woke up to the sound of whispers outside their cabin. She shook Mark awake, her eyes wide with fear. They both listened intently as the faint voices grew louder, their words incomprehensible. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, echoing through the forest. Without hesitation, Mark grabbed a flashlight and rushed outside, his heart pounding. He followed the eerie sounds deeper into the woods, the light from his flashlight revealing gnarled trees and twisted vines. The whispers seemed to surround him, coming from all directions, as if the very forest was alive with malevolence. Mark stumbled upon a clearing, and what he saw froze him in terror. In the center of the clearing stood a decrepit old cabin, its windows shattered, and its wooden walls coated in a thick layer of grime. The source of the screams became apparent. A figure, shrouded in tattered rags, was crouched on the cabin's porch, rocking back and forth. Mark's flashlight flickered, casting an eerie glow over the scene. "Who are you?" Mark's voice quivered as he called out. The figure slowly turned its head, revealing a face twisted by madness. Its eyes gleamed with a malevolent intensity as it let out a guttural growl. Mark stumbled back, his heart racing, and fled from the clearing, the whispers following him like a sinister chorus. The next morning, Mark recounted his chilling encounter to Emily and the kids. Fear gripped the family as they realized they were not alone in the campground. Panic set in, and they decided to leave immediately. As they packed their belongings, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Their car's engine sputtered to life, and they drove away from the campsite, leaving behind the horrors that had plagued their vacation. However, their escape was short-lived. As they reached the edge of the forest, a thick mist enveloped the road, obscuring their vision. The mist seemed to seep into the car, chilling them to the bone. Mark gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, as the mist twisted and contorted, forming grotesque shapes outside the windows. A haunting laughter echoed through the mist, sending shivers down their spines. The laughter grew louder, more sinister, until it felt as though it was echoing inside their heads. Suddenly, the car jolted to a stop, the engine dying with a final sputter. The mist swirled around them, suffocating and impenetrable. Desperation consumed the Thompsons as they tried to start the car, but it was as if they were trapped in a nightmare. The laughter grew deafening, merging with the voices of the forest that seemed to whisper their doom. Just when they thought all hope was lost, a blinding light pierced through the mist, revealing a group of campers who had been drawn by the commotion. With their help, the Thompsons managed to escape the suffocating mist and the nightmarish grasp of the forest. As they left Crystal Lake Campground, they glanced back one last time. The image of the twisted cabin and the malevolent figure burned into their memories. Their horrific summer vacation had ended in tragedy, a nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They had unwittingly stumbled into a realm of darkness, where the boundaries between reality and the supernatural had blurred, and the forest itself held unspeakable secrets. And as they drove away, they couldn't help but wonder if they had narrowly escaped a fate far worse than they could have ever imagined.